guys, so today I'm going to talk about my experience with epilepsy. I had my first fit when I was 9. Some people with hemiplegia, like myself, get it around this age due to having a brain injury. So I suffer from grand mal seizures, where you have violent muscle contractions and a loss of consciousness, and this is caused by abnormal electrical activity in the brain. So I have many fears, like needles, bloods or heights, but epilepsy makes those fears seem so small. It is the worst thing I've ever experienced because I'm awake the whole way through it. And the one way I can describe it is being whirled around in an office chair uncontrollably at maximum speed for ages, or your head being kicked around like a football. And strangely, I can hear everything crystal clear when I'm having it, which is quite scary. And I think my advice to anyone who experiences the same thing, I think you should tell a family member or someone that you live with that you can hear, because it gives you a lot of comfort when it's happening, even though you can't respond. I think there is a massive misconception that a lot of epilepsy is triggered by flashing lights, but only 3% of people are affected by this. My fits are triggered by stress, overexhaustion and dehydration, so I really have to look after myself. And it is unfortunate that I get insomnia sometimes, and that stops me from socialising at times. But the good thing is I've only had 10 fits in my lifetime, and it's most likely because I didn't have the right level of medication, and now I'm on the right level of medication, and I haven't had one for 6 years, which I'm so grateful for. So when I was young, the doctors told my parents if I reached the age of 10, I probably won't be epileptic. And they really thought that they got away with it. But sadly, when I was 9, I had my first ever fit. So I don't really remember a lot about my first fit, just that I was on a bunk bed. I was on the top bunk and my brother was on the bottom bunk, and my mum's cousin was staying over, so she was on a mattress next to us in the same room. And because I could hear everything, I just heard my mum's cousin's voice, like being really panicky, and then her calling my parents and their voices being very panicky as well. And that's all I really remember about my first fit. And then I had one exactly 1 month later, which was really weird. But what I remember about that fit was the whirling motion and my mum telling my dad, if this goes over 5 minutes, then we're really going to have to worry. And then I think it only lasted about 3-4 minutes. Then after that, I was put on Tegretol. I was put on 200 milligrams. And as I've grown up, I've gone up to 600 milligrams. So after that, I didn't have a fit for 6 years. The next fit I had was when I was 15, and I think it was around March time. And what I remember about that day was that I had a really tiring day at school, and my mum had a really tiring day at work. So we decided to watch a movie that evening. And what I remember is that she was just about to put the movie on, and she said something like, "I'll just go make some tea." And while she was in the kitchen, my right hand started shaking, and I just called to my mum saying, "Mum, come here." And she said something like, "I'll just be there in a minute." And then what I remember is that my head went back. I had this instant shot of drowsiness. And when my mum came into the room, she started talking to me, because over the years I had told her that I can hear everything when I fit. I think she was saying something like, "Don't worry, everything will be over soon." And when I eventually came out of the fit, I said, "Oh my God, that was horrible." And not fully realising that I had a fit, because when you're young, time goes so slowly. So I'd completely forgotten how a fit feels like. And then what I remember is that I went to A&E that evening, and I was so relaxed. I was really chatty with doctors, and I think it was just because the worst was over and I knew I wouldn't have one for a very long time. So I had one in the same year, I think it was in August, and my mum had bought us a place in Greece, on top of a hill for the intention of us getting some exercise. And what I remember about the first night was that I was on a rock hard mattress. I didn't sleep at all, and I was stressed from the flight. What I remember about the next day was that we were walking quite a lot. I wasn't really drinking that much. I think I only drank when we had lunch in the middle of the day. And so I was very tired and very dehydrated. That night I was on a mattress that wasn't that bad. I just remember lying down, and then a few moments later my right hand was shaking, and then I started fitting, and I called my mum. I was like, "Mum, come here. Mum, I'm having a fit." And it was horrendous. After that, the whole rest of the holiday, I was very cautious. So after that, I had one every 2 years, all the way through my teenage years, which was super odd. And the next two were quite dramatic. So when I was 17, my neurologist thought it was a good idea for me to come off my tablets because he thought that I had grown out of it. And obviously I thought this was a really bad idea. I didn't want to have another fit. I was totally terrified of having another fit. But what I remember is that everyone was reassuring me, saying everything would be fine. What I remember is that a month later, I was on 100 milligrams and I was on 200 before. We were in Devon and we were in a cottage that had 3 floors. And the bathroom was on the top floor. And what I remember about that day I had my fit was that we were walking quite a lot, and I didn't really drink that much. And when we came back, I needed the loo, so I went up to the loo, sat on the loo, and then my hand started shaking, my right hand. And then what happened next was that I fell over. I fell headfirst onto my nose, and I really felt the impacts. What I remember next was that there was this cupboard that had a mirror at the bottom of it, so I think at one point I could actually see myself, but it was very blurry, but that was really scary. And then what I remember was that I was fitting, and then immediately I was in my bed in this cottage, and then I started groaning, and my mum came up, and then she seemed really shocked, and then she called my brother and my dad, and they just seemed so shocked because apparently my face was full of blood. They had thought that I had broken my head or my nose, but it was just a nosebleed in the end. But I actually remember my mum feeling my head, thinking that I had really broken my head in some way. But what I remember is that I told my mum I want to go back on the full dose, and I think she was quite unsure about that, but I think, yeah, she let me have the full dose at that night. And then the next day, my mum told me that I had another one in the night, and I have no memory of that, which is so strange. So 2 years later, I was 19 and I had my first ever fit away from my family, and that was very scary. What I remember about that time was that I had just started at Oxford College, and it was very nerve-wracking because before that I had just been at school since I was 11, and so I was around new teachers and new people, and yeah, that was very nerve-wracking for me. What I remember is that I did manage to make friends with these girls, and it was nice to hang around people at lunch and on my breaks. What I remember is that the night before I had my fit, I didn't sleep at all, but I thought, this is college, I need to go in, it's not a social thing. So I went in, and I think I only drank tea in the morning. But what I remember is that I had a lesson in the morning, and then me and these girls decided to go into town, and the first place we went to was Topshop, and I took one step into Topshop and I started feeling really dizzy, and I put my hand out to hold one of the racks And then I remember one of the girls saying, are you okay? And then I just started fitting, and I remember that one being so long. But what I remember is that I was just fitting, and then immediately I was talking to my two friends who are at college. Also, I was talking to a paramedic, and I was telling her, I told her, I'm terrified I'm going to have another one. And I don't know if anyone else gets this, but every time after I've had a fit, I think I'm going to have another one. And I have no idea why. I think it's probably because my legs are still shaking, and that triggers anxiety. But yeah, I'm not really sure. What I remember is that I got into the ambulance, and then my TA just appeared, and she came in the ambulance with me. And I think maybe half an hour later, my mum came. She arrived at A&E, and then she started crying, and then that made me cry. And then after that, I did go home, and I had the day off after that. But after that fit, I had intense anxiety where the right side of my body would tense up, and I would constantly have this during the day. And I think it was because it was the first one I had without my family, and it was in the middle of the day, so it was very unusual. But yeah, that lasted about 8 months, and I do think it was because I didn't have a lot of people supporting me at the time besides my family, and it was quite a bad time for me when I was 19, unfortunately. So 2 years later, when I was 21, what I remember is that I was just about to start at Banbury College, and I was very nervous about this. And the week before, me and my family were in France on holiday, and I was suffering from really bad insomnia, and I think it was because I was nervous about starting at a new college. And so when we got back, my mum took me to the doctor, and the doctor put me on sertraline to help with my anxiety. And then I started at Banbury College, and it was very nerve-wracking, but I was fine. A month later, I think what happened was that the sertraline decreased all the Tegretol in my blood, and so one weekend I got woken up by this fit. What happened after was that, I don't actually remember this, but my parents told me that I got up and I said, I want to go home, and that didn't make any sense whatsoever. What happened afterwards was that the paramedics came, and that was all fine. And then I went downstairs to sit on the couch, and I was very nervous that I was going to have another one, because I always have that anxiety. And then what I remember is that my cat Daisy came over and started comforting me, and I always feel like animals know when something's wrong. But yeah, after that, my dad actually took a picture of me, and it was like calm full storm, because a few moments later I had another one, and this miracle happened where I was awake for 2 seconds when I was having a fit, and then I blacked out, and it was such a relief. But the bad side of that was that when I woke up, I was on the floor, and I was looking up at these paramedics, and that was quite scary. I was taken to A&E, and I think I was there for maybe 20 minutes, and then I had another one. And the same thing happened where I blacked out, which was nice for me. But then I woke up in a different location after that, and that was really scary. But I was just so happy that it was all over, So after that, I had the same anxiety I had when I was 19, where my right side would tense up. What I didn't say about the anxiety that I had when I was 19 is that I would constantly feel like I was going to have a fit, constantly. And so this happened when I was 21, but only lasted a week, because I had met these friends who I knew I'd have for the rest of my life, and I just knew if I had one, they would totally protect me and I would be absolutely fine. And so it wasn't that bad. But what I remember is that there was a photo taken of me and my friends. It was like the first picture we ever took together. I don't think my friends know this, but I was really suffering with that anxiety at the time. And you would never even think that I was suffering because I hide it so well. But that was hard for me for that week. But I just totally relaxed after that because I love my friends so much, and I just know that they would keep me safe. So since then, I haven't had another fit. Touch wood, it never happens again. But yeah, I'm on 600 milligrams at the moment, and I think that's worked pretty well. And I don't take any risks. I also have a medical bracelet. And I think anyone who's just been diagnosed with epilepsy, I think it's worth getting one, because if you unfortunately have a fit in town or somewhere, people around you will know who to contact besides calling 999. It does suck sometimes if I have a social thing on or even work. If I don't sleep, I don't go out. And I know from all my past experiences of having fits, I know it's not a good idea to put myself in that vulnerable place, as I never ever want to have another fit in town or anywhere outside of my home, because I know there were probably so many instances where I could have really harmed myself. And now I try to stay hydrated and go to bed early. But having said that, I don't always go to bed early, but I always do when I have work the next day. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.